All right, we're back. Second time in a week after taking a long break. We are back with NFL draft this time. This one will go a little bit quicker. David, it's been a week and a half since we did our college football draft. We've had week zero that kind of counted, but didn't really count. We each had a team play one game, and then we had our first week this past week. My Florida State Seminoles defeated your LSU Tigers. But besides that, how are we feeling a week and a half into our college football competition?
It's hard to say. I mean, I did like seeing Clemson get beat down last night. I I can't really say that I have a great feel for who's actually good this year. Like my week one overreaction text that I sent you was, what if the SEC isn't good this year? Like, what if Georgia struggles with Carson Beck? What if Alabama falls off? Like a lot of people think they're going to. LSU looked terrible. That's my overreaction because obviously we're going to have all this chaos and it's going to end with Alabama and Georgia playing in the national title game. But for now, it's week one. We're heading into week two. This is where we get to overreact. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I like it. We'll see. I'm trying to not make too many brash overreactions, but I do feel really good about how Florida State looked. But this is not about college football. This is about the NFL. Season starts in 2 days. We're going to probably be uploading this on Tuesday night. We got the Lions and the Chiefs kicking us off on Thursday, and we are coming to you with another competition draft. To recap how this went last year, it was a splattering. I will talk myself up for a second
Do
here.
we, do we really have to show this?
We're going to show this. We're going to go through it really quickly because it's going to help us
This is mind games.
refresh our six viewers on how last season's competition went. Dave somehow allowed me to get the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Vikings, who
Where,
all won 13 or more games.
how do I leave the studio?
if
Uh,
it, in case you were wondering, I had both teams that played in the AFC Championship game. I had both teams that played in the Super Bowl. Uh, I feel pretty good about how last season went.
yeah.
So, to refresh everybody's memory, we're going to have a draft similar to the way we do it in college football. We're going to pick one team in each division. If I select a team in the AFC East, David will follow it up with a team in the AFC East, and the AFC East will be done. So, if the Bills and the Patriots are selected similar to how it went last year, that means that the Dolphins and the Jets accumulate points for nobody. On and on we go until we've completed the entire draft. This draft will probably move a lot quicker than our last one did, but the way that we're going to alternate it, similar to last time, we're going to flip a coin. The winner of the coin flip gets the first pick or the second and third picks, their choice. We'll alternate from there. And after one person makes a selection with the team, the other one will follow it up with their second team in that division. All good? Ready to go, Dave?
Yeah, let's do it. It's very interesting looking at this from like a strategic standpoint. You basically just want to avoid not picking like the wrong team more than like you know what I mean? Like I led with Tampa Bay and Green Bay and Indianapolis. Like I'm looking at this cringing. But I did that, and that's what shot me in the foot. When you look at the teams that I got in second place in each division, they actually all did really well. It's about
Yeah,
like
it's
avoiding
crazy.
mistakes more
It's
than anything.
crazy to think about one that we let the Chiefs fall to the last pick last year because of our faith in the Chargers. That's really what it came down to is we were so confident
Yeah, that was
in
dumb.
the Chargers' ability to be successful that we let the AFC East or the AFC West, excuse me, fall all the way down to the last pick, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think
the
it's going to
fact,
be the exact opposite this year.
very possibly, the fact that you started off with Tampa and Green Bay, Brady and Rodgers, and they both had their worst seasons with their respective teams for the most part, that was brutal. Not just that, though. It wasn't just that. I think we were all in agreement that the NFC South was weak last year, but it was that you spent your second pick on a team that was in a division where nobody won more than 9 games. And then
Yeah.
I was able to follow up your Green Bay pick with a team that ended up winning 13 regular season games or 13 games to overall. That was absolutely crucial. And
And one of the craziest statistical outliers of a season ever, right? Like if you
yep,
watch each of their games, they could have went like 9-8 and they went 13-4. So
right. And to
that's
follow
half.
this up, we do count every playoff game and the Super Bowl. They all count as wins. We stopped tracking it because it was such a splattering. That's my last dig that I'll give you until we get into this year's draft. But we're going to go ahead and pull up our handy dandy coin flipper. Dave, I will let you pick
That's
first.
how
What
this
do you
works. I
like?
thought as the reigning champ, you get to decide. I mean, I'll do it again.
Okay. All right. No. I will decide.
Come
I
on,
will decide. You like
you got to
you'd
put
like
some
me to
skin in the
decide?
game here. Yeah,
Okay.
you got.
All right. I'm gonna choose heads, and it is heads. Shout out to me. You picked. You lost. I picked. I win. This is
Oh,
this is great. Um, you know, you referenced that it might be different this year. Who goes first? I actually, I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna choose. Shoot, what do I want to do? This is tough. I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna pick first. I picked first last year and it worked out for me. I'm going to pick first mostly because I really want to take the Philadelphia Eagles with the number one pick. Uh, Look, I have the most confidence in their ability to replicate what they did last year. I think that it's always tricky picking a team coming off a Super Bowl loss. We've seen one of the two teams in the Super Bowl usually not be able to replicate their success. I think that Philly is the most dominant team within a division. I think that the NFC East is really good, but this is over me being overly confident in the Eagles' ability to win 12 or 13 games, and me saying I think that the downside to their season is much. They have a higher floor than anybody else, in my opinion, and I would rather have other teams' second team in a division than I would rather have the second team in the NFC East because I think that the downside of Dallas, New York, and the formerly known as Washington Redskins is lower relative to the Eagles than it is the gap at any other division. So I'm going to choose Philly first.
I like it. I mean, I'm shocked to be honest. I had the Eagles in my top three, um, for all the reasons you just said. On paper, I think they probably had the best roster, top to bottom, on offense and defense in the league. I guess if there's any area of concern, it's they go from having the easiest schedule in the league last year to a little bit more difficult. They got to play all the AFC East teams. They get the Chiefs as well, but it's still, I think it's 13th in schedule strength, so it's still not terrible. It's going to be very interesting because is Hurts going to validate what he did last year, the leap that he had last year, or was it kind of a 1 year? They were like one step ahead of defenses with their scheme, and all summer and spring, every defensive coordinator has been gearing
Right.
up to stop the Eagles, right? Like, or is he going to add more layers to his game, and they're gonna take off just like they did last year? So I feel
This
super
is me
confident that
banking on it. This is me banking on that it's real. This is me banking on I believe in Jalen Hurts. I believe in the culture that the Eagles have created. I believe in the depth of talent they have across the board. And I believe in the entire ecosystem that is the Philadelphia Eagles right now. I think that Jalen Hurts is the kind of guy that is going to internalize the tough, close loss in the Super Bowl last year. And I think that he's going to put them in a position to be right there again. The NFC is the weaker conference. So, as much as this is me believing in the Eagles in the regular season, this is also me believing in the Eagles' path to get back to the Super Bowl once they make the playoffs. Those wins count just the same. They've matched up really well against the 49ers the last few years since that. I mean, we're really last year. They physically manhandled them. And I know that the Niners had the shitty quarterback situation in the playoffs, but entering into the season, I think that the Eagles are the favorites in the NFC. And so I'm happy to start there. Who are you going to take as the second team?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dallas.
Okay.
I had wanted to get Philly as one of my teams too because I do think there is a downside to Dallas this year that I'll talk about a little bit, but there's also an upside. I'm pretty sure I heard like no team has won the NFC East 2 years in a row in the last, I think it was like 19 or 20 years, which is pretty shocking, right? I don't think it's been since like the early 2000s, Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid, Eagles, that a team has done it. Um, if any team has the talent to surpass the Eagles this year, it's the Cowboys. A lot of my faith in them is on the defensive end. I thought they were a very elite defense last year. They dominated on the margins with turnovers, with sacks. Micah Parsons is obviously a generational superstar. DeMarcus Lawrence, Trayvon Diggs. They added Stephon Gilmore, so I think their secondary is going to get that much stronger. I also feel like Dak, he had a bad year for his standard. If he cuts down on the turnover problem, you know, at the very least, like they won 12 games last year when he had that major turnover problem. So I think that shows you what the floor of this team can look like in a way with the talent that they have. And they have a loaded receiving group, right? They got CeeDee Lamb, they added Brandon Cooks. I really like the weapons that he has. What I don't like is that like Kellen Moore had done a really good job, and now Mike McCarthy's taken over play calling duties, and Mike McCarthy loves to run the ball like he's stuck in 1987 or something. And I feel like when it was the beginning of the end of his time in Green Bay, he did something similar where he started like seizing more control over the team. So that scares me for sure. Coupled with the fact that Kellen Moore, I thought, was like a bright spot for their offense. And I think it's going to be a good coordinator with Justin Herbert and the Chargers this year. Yeah, I feel like I have to go with them. I did consider the Giants, my beloved Giants. I don't think the Giants have the talent to justify taking them over the Cowboys here. Could this pick blow up in my face and McCarthy's maybe? But I also feel like they could win this division, so I don't feel terrible about it.
Yeah, I think that I was debating between Dallas and the Giants if I was in a position where I had to draft the second East team. The Cowboys are the better team on paper. I think the Giants are better coached, and I really liked what I saw out of them last year. I'm glad that I didn't have to make the decision because I don't know that I would have had confidence in either team pushing forward. But who is your second and third picks going to be?
You want me to go through both of them or go
Yeah,
one?
why don't you go ahead and go through both of them, and then I'll follow up with both of them myself.
Yep, I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I'm going to take the Bengals.
Right.
So let's summarize me. And I know you wanted me to go Bengals because I know you're all over the Steelers rejuvenation, and I feel like I just backed you into a corner from which you are not going to recover because, John, you're biased. You're biased. They might be good. I do like the Steelers. You said it earlier. I made the mistake last year. I let you get Mahomes, Burrow, and Josh Allen. I'm never letting that happen again. And blessings to me, I get Mahomes and Burrow this year. I was thinking you were going to take the Chiefs first. I'm thrilled that I get both of them. I didn't want to overthink it with trying to get cute with like, what's the division I can back you into a corner with? I did that last year at the NFC South. It backfired. I want to take the two teams that I feel like have the best chance of winning the championship this year. And I think it's the Chiefs and the Bengals. The Chiefs, I mean, do I even really have to explain that pick? Mahomes is a god. You give him any sort of weapons, and he's going to generate a league-leading offense, especially paired with Andy Reid. I did see Travis Kelce banged up his knee in practice today. He hyperextended it, so now his status for the Lions game is in doubt. But I have faith that injury won't be serious. Even if for whatever reason they lost Kelce, I still feel like they'd find a way to be a good offense. And I feel like the defense is underrated. Like Chris Jones, he's still home now, but he'll be back. You know, they're chasing history here. I cannot imagine he's going to hold out over his contract the entire season. Nick Bolton had that huge fumble recovery and touchdown in the Super Bowl. And their secondary has a bunch of young guys. Like they've been kind of low-key nailing draft picks. Trent McDuffie's a guy who I think is going to really stand out this year. So, you know, I've just set it and forget it with the Chiefs. I just don't want to overthink that one. And do you want to go with your pick, and then maybe we talk AFC North after that?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers. Feel like that's an obvious pick, and I'll go ahead. Well, yeah, we'll wait and talk AFC North after that. You just talked up Kellen Moore. He's now the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Justin Herbert's been a stud every year that he's been in the league. It hasn't translated to playoff success yet, but ultimately this is an incredibly talented team that's going to win a lot of football games, and they're always in. They're always in it. as long as Justin Herbert is there, as long as he is healthy and playing and physically capable, they're going to be loaded offensively. They're going to be in games, and it's the obvious pick here for me. My choices in the West are Herbert, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo. Give me Justin Herbert, and I'll take whatever that ends up getting me. I think that it's the right decision to pick the Chiefs. But if you just talked about the loss that Kellen Moore is going to be in Dallas. That's the Chargers gain. It's all going to be relative here. I have to make a sacrifice by picking the Eagles and allowing you to get the Chiefs. They were going to go 1 and 2 in some order. I think I'd rather stick with Justin Herbert than Dak Prescott. That's just my opinion. And so I was kind of prepared for that to be the case. I would like to hear you talk about Cincinnati, though, because you knew coming into this that I was going to want to take the Steelers. And
Would you have taken them as a division leader, though?
No, I would not. And I love Cincinnati. Okay. Yeah. I love the Bengals. I love Joe Burrow. I'm a big Bengals supporter. And when it comes down to like last year, I wanted to see them make the Super Bowl. I would love to see them have success. I know that's blasphemous for me to, I'm supposed to be blasphemous for me to say as a Steelers fan, but I enjoy rooting for Cincinnati. I enjoy rooting for Joe Burrow's success. I really do love the Bengals, this iteration of the Bengals team and rooting for them. Yeah. But I think very highly of the Steelers team coming into the season. And I think that I'm hearing more and more people talk about them, but their line is disrespectful. Mike Tomlin is on the sideline, which means the Steelers are going to win 9 games. They went 7-2 down the stretch last year, and Kenny Pickett won a bunch of games in crunch time where he had to make plays, and he did it. And yes, it's the preseason, but 5 drives, 5 touchdowns. He looked efficient, effective. The Steelers did a great job in the draft. They have depth at running back. They have depth at wide receiver. They have depth at tight end. They have depth rushing the passer. TJ Watt is back and healthy. They did a good job getting Patrick Peterson to help shore up the secondary. I really think highly of the Steelers this season, and I was going to pick them either way. This is my biased pick. Yes, I'm choosing them over the Ravens. The Ravens were going to be a team that maybe a non-biased participant would have drafted in this spot. But the margin is so thin that I'm going to support the team that I actually actively think is going to overperform expectations. I think there's going to be a bounce and a leap with Kenny Pickett in year 2. I'll pass it back to you to talk about the Bengals. But from a draft strategy perspective, I was going to wait until the very end of the draft to take the AFC North because I wanted to have the Steelers in this draft. So I was going to let you pick the Bengals no matter what.
I thought maybe you were going to do that, but I can't read your mind. I can't take risks. Like, I got to have Burrow. And the fact that it's him, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, you know how much they count against the cap right now before like term extensions kick in? $25 million total, right? So that in and of itself is the biggest advantage you could have to build out the rest of their team. And so like they have a competitive defense, an underrated defense. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, good pass rushers. They added Miles Murphy from Clemson. I think he's going to add some flavor to that pass rush as well. Chidobe Awuzie in the secondary. He tore his ACL before the playoffs last year. That was a huge hit for them. He's back healthy. I really like them in the secondary. They did lose Jesse Bates and Von Bell, so they do have a new safety duo. They're bringing in Dax Hill, who was their first-round draft pick out of Michigan a couple of years ago. I feel like they'll be able to patch it up. They have a really good defensive coordinator. I don't know. They have the continuity as well. Zach Taylor, I think, has really proven himself. The way that they kind of shifted their strategy last year from throwing deep to just like taking what the defenses give them, I think that shows that they're a very like amorphous team, right? Like they know how to win in a variety of ways. And like I said, if we're not going to see a back-to-back champion, and we very rarely see a team lose the Super Bowl and come back the next year and win, I just feel like a lot of signs are pointing towards Cincinnati winning the Super Bowl this year. If I had to pick a team to win, I think I'm going with the Bengals. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So taking that with my first 2 picks was a must-have.
I think that's a very fair pick, and if I had to pick a Super Bowl right now, it would be Philadelphia versus Cincinnati. So I I can't say that I disagree with your choice. I would love to see Joe Burrow win a Super Bowl. I hope that doesn't come at the expense of me giving you $500. But I think that's a very fair evaluation, and I think that the Bengals are going to be right there competing. My next pick, you mentioned something early in your analysis of your two selections. You said last year you let me get Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, and you were never going to do it again. I'm not going to allow you to do that. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here. Why am I going to take the Buffalo Bills? Do I have as much? I took them. I was, first of all, I was going back to last year's draft to show two things. One, to show that I did not choose the Steelers last year. I chose the Bengals because I did not have confidence in the Steelers last year the way that I do this year. But two, to also show that I chose the Bills with the number one overall pick last year in the draft. I do not have as much confidence in the Bills this year as I did in the Bills last year. The AFC East, I think, is stronger than I thought it was heading into last season. But ultimately, right now, I'm banking on, in this point in the draft, the team that has the highest over-under left on the board. Their over-under win total is 10.5, juice to the over. And I'm betting on the best quarterback that has not been selected, Josh Allen. Simmons and cousin Sal. Simmons has mentioned it on like 3 separate podcasts. I know we're big Bill Simmons fans here. But Simmons has mentioned, if your argument to me is that you're just banking on Josh Allen getting 10 or 11 wins for the Bills, I don't really have a comeback for that. That is my argument. I think that with Josh Allen at quarterback, the Bills are good for 10, 11, 12 wins. They're good to make the playoffs. They're going to win the AFC East, in my opinion, because I'm not as big of a believer in the Jets, the Dolphins, or the Patriots. And so I'm going to sit here and take what I feel is a guaranteed 10 wins as long as Josh Allen is healthy. I think they're going to win the division. And I would like to put the ball in your court to have to choose the other AFC East team and
Yeah.
also just not allow you to have that stacked mega trio of the 3 elite AFC quarterbacks that it feels like there's some element. We've talked about this, and maybe it's too early to say, but at the same time, it's not. There's elements of this. Tom Brady is Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow is Peyton Manning, and Josh Allen is Ben Roethlisberger that existed in the AFC when we were growing up as teenagers that I think this modern iteration of AFC quarterbacks is going to replicate that in some respects. So all that being said, taking the Buffalo Bills here.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. I feel like you had to. If you gave me the Bills there, you're doing what I did last year, which we now know is a terrible formula. And I feel like they're underrated because of how their season ended last year, but they had a lot going on. I mean, Damar Hamlin almost died on the field. Von Miller got hurt. Their secondary was super banged up. So by the time the season ended, they looked terrible against Cincinnati. They got humiliated. That did happen. It does matter. But thinking through portions of that regular season, they looked like the best team in the NFL for a lot of it. I mean, should we go back and flash the text that you were sending about them? You were freaking out every single week, being like, is this team going to go 17-0? And it didn't sound crazy at the beginning of the season, And so
the way they looked on opening night against the Rams, without us knowing that the Rams were going to have a season from hell too, and they were going to completely collapse, they looked amazing.
Amazing. Then they put it on Tennessee or someone like that too. Like they had some offensive performances that you're just like, how do you stop this team?
Right.
So could it be the year that they put it all together? I mean, Josh Allen hurt his elbow as well. I feel like that had an effect. So it's going to depend on health like it does for any NFL team. But yeah, you boxed me into making a very difficult choice here. I think that's probably the best part about your selection of the Bills is I got to choose between the Dolphins and the Jets. I'm not considering the Patriots. Maybe that'll come back to bite me, but it's a little too boring.
Yeah.
And I got to go for ceiling here, right? Like it's just hard for me to believe the Pats are going to come out of this division as champions. I do think the Dolphins or the Jets, it wouldn't be like out of control if either of those teams won the division. And I'm going with the Dolphins. I'm going the Dolphins. I really wanted to go Jets. I just couldn't talk myself into it. It's the Jets. Like Aaron Rodgers, been there, done that last year. He was okay. He's 39 years old. I think he's turning 40 during the season. Yes, they have a loaded defense. I think Miami's defense is going to be really good too. Vic Fangio is their new defensive coordinator. He's got a great track record. I know Jalen Ramsey got hurt. That sucks. I probably wouldn't even have thought twice about picking the Dolphins if he didn't get hurt, but I think they have a lot of pieces in place to have, if not a Jets level defense, a very good defense. And I think the offensive ceiling, I just trust it way more than the Jets. The Jets don't have an offensive line. There's a chance Mike McDaniel is like truly a special play caller. I mean, they're in the year one returns on the Mike McDaniel experience was really impressive. When this was a healthy team, they were one of the best offenses in the league last year. And so that brings me to the biggest fear. I have Tua now. Tua didn't stay healthy in college. Tua has not stayed healthy in the NFL. If he gets hurt, they don't have Teddy Bridgewater to lean on as a backup anymore. It's Mike White now. Mike White had some moments with the Jets. I could feel worse about that. It's all going to come down to, does he stay healthy? And as you had said about the Bills, this division's a bloodbath. You're not getting an easy schedule across any of these teams. I do think it could be a scenario where the division winner wins like 10 games. And so even if Miami doesn't overcome the Bills this year, I'm hoping they can at least stay within 1 or 2 wins and everyone's like super condensed.
So there's, I think if you would have placed me in this situation, that I would have chosen the Jets. And there's just the thought that I have in the back of my mind is Aaron Rodgers is an elite talent, and he did not play that great last year. But there's other examples that we've seen of elite level quarterbacks go to other teams and have immense levels of success in their first year. I think back to Peyton Manning going to Denver. First year he was there, they won 13 games. First year that Brady went to Tampa Bay, they won 11 games and won the Super Bowl. Brett Favre had one in-between year where he played for the Jets, but then he went to Minnesota. I think that was a 12 or 13 win team that made it to the NFC title game and lost.
That's right.
I think that the Jets, because of their history, because of how Aaron Rodgers didn't have that great of a season last year, they are the most high ceiling, low floor team maybe in the NFL this season. Their win total set at 9.5. If you told me they won 6 games, because the AFC East has the chance to be a bloodbath.
Right.
If you told me they won 6 games, I'd say, okay. If you told me they won 13 games, I'd say, okay. Like, I could see either scenario happening. The Dolphins feel a little safer to me, but if I had been in your position, I think I would have chosen the Jets because of the upside. But it's good. Like, look, there's good teams that we're not going to be drafting, which factors into this. When the Jets, the Ravens, the teams that are not drafted in this competition, the Giants, we're now actively rooting for those teams against the teams that the other one of us selected, which just throws another wrinkle into this. But
well, remember what I told you before this. I'm trying to avoid the disastrous pick.
Right.
And there's too many signs with the Jets, including their franchise history, including the fact that they haven't proven they can block and have a 39-year-old quarterback. There's too many negative signs that make me think they could be that disastrous pick, and I just don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
It might bite me because they could easily win the division. If they won the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked. They have Aaron Rodgers and a loaded defense. Like, there's a lot to be excited about too.
All right, who are you going to take with the next pick? You are up.
Yep. I'm going to go San Fran. I'm going to take the Niners. At a certain point, as I was evaluating these teams, I actually at one point had the Niners as my number one team. And I started to think about it. I started to listen to more like preseason podcast coverage and things like that. And I was like, you know what I don't love? The fact that they're going to be quarterbacked by either Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold throughout the season. But you know what I do love? That it does seem like Kyle Shanahan is like the greatest offensive play caller of all time. Like, the fact that he is delivering the results he's doing with the quarterback talent that he's had is unlike anything I can remember. I mean, I'm trying to think of a comparison of like a historical team, and I can't think of one. And when you look at the roster beside the quarterback, it's like an Eagles level roster, right? Skill position talent's insane. Debo, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. On defense, Nick Bosa. They added Javon Hargrave. Fred Warner is an absolute stud at linebacker. Like, I just can't look past the talent of this team. I also think that their division is sneakily pretty weak. Like, everyone knows the Cardinals are bad. I think most people are hip to the fact that the Rams might also be really bad, but they might not be given where they were 2 seasons ago. So I think I've forced you into a pick as the division, as like the number 2 pick in this division. And that's going to force you into an unreliable quarterback as well. Uh, and the last thing I'll touch on with the Niners, they have a really easy schedule, 5th in strength of schedule. I do think that even if they don't have a Super Bowl ceiling necessarily because of who they have at quarterback, that they should be able to win double-digit games pretty comfortably, I think, unless like disaster strikes, both Purdy and Darnold get hurt. So I got to take the Niners here because I think with every other division that's left, we're throwing darts at that point.
Yep. I agree. I'm going to take the Seahawks here. First, I'll touch on the Niners. I think it's the right pick in this scenario, right? If you were to look at the landscape of the NFL in general, the top 5 teams entering this year, the top 5 teams last year, in some way, shape, or form, it's Philly, Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and the Niners. Those are the right first 5 picks, any way that you slice the pie. I think that if we're talking about reliability or stability, Shanahan's system, they're going to win games. They're loaded at all these different positions. But you talked about the quarterback situation. Brock Purdy did a great job last year. He also suffered a very serious injury in that game against Philadelphia. Sam Darnold is the backup. And I mean, we've seen some bits and pieces of the Brock Purdy experience, but is he going to be able to carry that over into this year? I don't know. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? I don't know. I would rather have Buffalo, Philly, Cincinnati, or Kansas City, which is how that shook out. And if I'm going to choose the first pick, then that means I'm going to allow you to get three of those 5 teams. I'm picking Seattle for a few different reasons. One, Arizona is a disaster, and I think that, like you mentioned, there's a chance that the Rams are a disaster. So it's the easy other choice here in this scenario. They still have an 8.5 over/under entering the season, juiced to the over. They have an easy schedule, likely due to the fact that they play the Rams twice and the Cardinals twice. Pete Carroll just wins games. I'm okay with betting on Pete Carroll to win games. Entering last season, we talked a lot of shit about the Seahawks. Everybody talked a lot of shit about the Seahawks. Very low expectations. And what do? They found a way to make the playoffs. They found a way to win 9 games. Pete Carroll, since he got to Seattle, he has averaged, and his first year was 2010. He's averaged 10 wins a season, and that includes starting 7-9 and 7-9 his first 2 years there. He's averaging 10 wins. He finds a way to win games. They have depth at running back now with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. They drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're going to have one of the best 3-headed monsters out at wide receiver. They're going to find a way to stop people. I think that this is the obvious second pick in the division, and I put myself in a box a bit by choosing some of the teams that I did earlier. But would I rather have Seattle, or would I rather have you having Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo? I would rather have Seattle and bank on there being a chance that Brock Purdy isn't able to carry the Niners to the success that they've had in recent years. We'll see. Remains to be seen. But it's a situation that I was comfortable with placing myself into.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel like Seattle can win the division this year. I'm not one of them, but like you can see the path if the quarterback situation in San Francisco is too much for even Shanahan to overcome, right? What I would be surprised by is if Seattle ended up being more than like a 10-7 team. I'd be really surprised if this is like a 12-5 team. Geno feels like he had like his feel good peak season last year, and it's still kind of in totality ended up being solid, but not great, right? And then
Right.
9-8, I believe. And so unless he has another level to get to, I feel like they have a very hard capped ceiling.
So you talked about throwing darts at the whiteboard here.
I know what you're
I
gonna do.
agree. We have three divisions left. I'm going to choose the dart
I
among
know
these
what
three
you're gonna do.
divisions that has the best quarterback of any of the teams that are in any of the three remaining divisions. I'm taking the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I thought you were
Okay.
gonna go. I thought you were gonna go to Detroit. You got me excited.
No. Oh no. I'll let you make the decision on who you'd like to select in the remaining two divisions. But I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence. Okay. The Jags, first and foremost, it's interesting. The AFC South and the NFC South, the two divisions matched up with each other this year, arguably the two weakest divisions. Right? There is some steam behind the Titans, and Mike Vrabel is a phenomenal coach, but Derrick Henry's getting old. And their quarterback play with Tannehill. They drafted Will Levis again. They're clearly trying to set some stuff up for the future. If the Titans struggle out the gate, they'll still be trying to win games. But there is a scenario where, I mean, Mike Vrabel's too good of a coach to just punt on the season. But there is a scenario where they're going to be trying to get some younger guys some run. But when it comes to the Jags, look, right, we know that the team that wins the division the previous year has to play against the other division winners. So you set them up with games against Cincinnati, Kansas City, and Buffalo. That's really, really tough, right? They've also got a game. They've got a game against the Niners. That's a little tough. Well, they play the Niners at home. They play the Bengals at home. They play the Ravens at home. They play the Chiefs at home. And the only really difficult non-divisional game that they play, like that stands out to you, is the game against Buffalo, and that game's played in London. That game's being played overseas. So all of their most difficult games on their schedule are being played at home. And at times of the year where I would say it might be favorable for them. So is their schedule difficult? Relatively speaking, yes. But it's the best that you can ask for with the teams that are still available on the board here. I'm going to bank on Trevor Lawrence in the ascendancy of his career with a good coach, a team that learned how to win last year, that made a massive leap. I'm going to bank on them being the safest bet that's still available to me at this point in time. And I feel comfortable having Trevor.
No, it's a super defensible pick. And if you think about it, like who we thought Trevor Lawrence was coming out of Clemson a couple years ago, about this time in his career should be when he starts becoming like he really makes the leap towards being a superstar, right?
Right.
It's about year 3. It would make a lot of sense. If it happens, we'll all be like, yep, we saw that coming 5 years ago, right? He still has to do it though. And the only thing about Jacksonville, because I was tempted to take them even higher when I was first doing this, but they do have some serious holes on this roster still. I don't feel like they're taking as much advantage of having Trevor Lawrence on a real should be. Their offensive line is still pretty shaky. I think they finished like second to last in pass block win rate last year. Trevor Lawrence is really good at avoiding sacks, so he mitigates that a little bit. But their left tackle is also suspended the first 4 games of the year. So if they get out to a slow start, it could be tough to kind of recover and have a double-digit win season. I think they really need their pass rush to come along, right? That's where they've invested all their draft capital. Josh Allen, the edge rusher, he's very good. They need Trayvon Walker as the number 1 pick. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was last year.
Last year.
He's the number 1 pick. If he performs like a number 1 pick and they have a star, pass rush duo, I think that'll go a really long way towards them meeting expectations.
Couple things that I want to bring up that haven't been touched on yet. One, they brought Calvin Ridley, will be on the field for them this year. He took a year off due to his gambling suspension. And I feel like there's some people that forget about the fact that he has not played in a Jaguar uniform, but he is now on the Jaguars. I think that he's going to have a big impact. And also, we saw this team win close games last season against good teams. We saw Trevor Lawrence find a way to win. They were never out of the game. I mean, the one that stands out is obviously the wild card game against the Chargers. What were they on? 27-0, 24-0, like super, super, super quick. Throws 4 interceptions in the first half. and he still has the mental fortitude and toughness to lead his team all the way back in that scenario and win the game. I think that speaks volumes. But they also won a really difficult game against the Ravens earlier in the season when they had to come from behind. They won a big game against Dallas where they came from behind, and they played a do or die, winner take all game against the Titans the last week of the season. And they found a way to win that game too. Like they last year, everything that you wanted for a team that had picked number one in the draft. I think they won two wins the year before. To take the leap that they did, yes, you touched on it. If Trevor is going to be the guy that we expect him or thought he was going to be, this is when he could level it up and you can go, wow, okay, so it's not just a 4-team or a 3-team race, really. 3 elite quarterbacks plus Lamar. Like Trevor is entering into that category, and Justin Herbert. I mean, the AFC is so loaded. But Trevor plays in a division where he is, in my opinion, well, shoot, it's with 2 rookies and Ryan Tannehill. He's considerably the best bet in the division. If there's going to be a team that out of nowhere makes the Super Bowl or has the best record in the NFL that's in one of the 3 remaining divisions those available, the Jags are by far the best bet.
Yeah. No, I get the logic there. It is funny though, like glass half full, glass half empty. Like they beat the Titans to win the division last year. They found a way to win. It also took them returning a fumble for a touchdown with like under 5 minutes to beat Josh Dobbs in a winner go home game.
History is written by the winners, baby.
History is written by the winners. Yep.
Everything's played on a thin margin, and everything is on a thin margin.
I got to take the Titans, obviously.
Yeah.
If there were 2 teams that I crossed off immediately when doing this exercise, it was the Texans for obvious reasons, and it was the Colts, who were starting a guy who had like a 50% completion percentage at Florida last year. Like, if either of those teams makes the playoffs, consider me like completely stunned. So I got to take the Titans. I was reading the Ringer article on Mike Vrabel yesterday. And it was talking about, this guy is the ultimate football guy. Apparently, when he was on the Patriots, he would participate in like every single drill. He'd be on the scout team, returning punts and throwing jukes. Like he'd be like covering people. Like this guy's a football maniac. And so I bet against the Titans last year. I think I picked the Colts, who went 4-12, as my number 1 pick in the AFC South because the Titans are boring. I didn't want to go with the Titans. And then every single year, you know what happens? The Titans hang around.
They win football games.
They win games. And, like the path that you were describing for Trevor Lawrence to have the number 1 seed in the playoffs, that's what the Titans did 2 years ago. They were the number 1 seed before they lost to the Bengals in the divisional round. So having that AFC South schedule can make can provide advantages from a seeding perspective that you're not going to get in the AFC East and the AFC North, where every single team is competitive, right? Another thing about the Titans, they were ahead in 11 of their games last year heading into the 4th quarter, but they only won 7 of them, right? So if they just manage the games a little better, just closed out games, they win that division, right? My biggest, actually, before I get into worries, I also like that they added DeAndre Hopkins. I thought their receiving core badly needed a player like him. Now that Treylon Burks can kind of settle into a number 2 receiver role, I really like him in that spot. Everywhere else, Derrick Henry, he's coming up on 2,000 career carries. Every year we say, does he have more in the tank? And then he does. Like, I'm not going to bet against that guy. I think he's an absolute superhuman. But there is a downside, of course, of he's over the hill. Ryan Tannehill's 35 and gets benched. And then suddenly I'm rooting for Will Levis in like week 9. And I'm like,
right.
Stop the competition. Like, I quit. Right. I'm not paying you, John. I'm escaping some remote Caribbean island and you're never going to hear from me again type deal. But I really believe in the culture. Like I do. It's just, it slapped us in the face for like 4 or 5 years now. The Titans just win games. So I feel okay getting them here.
All right. Who you pick? Who you taking with pick number 7?
Yep. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
Damn.
A couple of reasons. I think this division could be an absolute shit show. I think we all do. And I get the one team in the division that I know will at least get competence at the quarterback position. You now have to decide between Desmond Ritter, uh, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Young, who's only a rookie, right? So have fun with that. They still have a lot of standouts on defense. I think the knock on them is they're getting older. Like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis are great, but they're like 35 years old. They got Marshawn Lattimore, Honey Badger. Like, there's talent. They were a top 10 defense last year. Assuming they don't get kind of bit by father time, I think they're going to continue to be a good defense. They are projected to play the easiest schedule in the league. We talked about how weak their division is. They get to face all of those teams twice. They also get the AFC South and the NFC North, who I would say are arguably the two other worst divisions. And I think we agree on that, given those are our last three divisional picks of this draft. Um, I There's a lot of questions in the skill group. I do think Chris Olave might be like the guy to make the leap into like Pro Bowl, all pro level receiver this year. He's not the flashiest guy, but ever since he was at Ohio State, he just gets open downfield um, and produces. And I'm really not that confident in their coach, but we're late in the draft. Again, last year I think I tried to get cute early in the draft and force you into teams that I didn't like, but I feel much better doing that at this juncture
Yeah.
than I do kind of doing it up front, right?
Yeah. I think shoot, like this is a no win situation picking a team here. So I'm just gonna take the team that I feel like has oh shoot, I don't even know. You know what? I'm taking the Falcons. I don't know that I really want to do that. Um, I think that their ground game is just strong enough that they're going to be able to win some games. They did it last year when they were really, really poor. And I'm just not sure that I'm a Bryce Young year one believer. I think that my favorite quarterback in the draft this past year was CJ Stroud. I think I made that known to our friend group. I love Bryce Young as like a leader, a guy that you want representing your franchise. I'm just not sure how physically gifted. Like he's going to have to be an exception. He's very small, and I think you can be an exception. I just am not sure that I want to bet on an exception in year one, and I don't want to bet on Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans, there's some contract disputes about that. He could end up being traded. Chris Godwin's been banged up. I'm not a Bucks believer. So that leaves me with the Falcons. I think that they've got a really strong run game with Bijan Robinson. They obviously committed a bunch of resources, drafting him in the top 10. They're going to feed him the rock. Tyler Algier was actually one of the most efficient running backs in the league last year when they gave him opportunities. Cordell Patterson is a playmaker who's still somehow kicking around in the league. And I think that Drake London showed an ability to win in press man coverage last year that, look, between Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, they've invested very heavily at the skill positions. I think that, there's not much more for me to say there. We're picking them this late for a reason. It's because that's kind of a shitty division. I think you made the right choice with the Saints. I think I'm making the right choice with the Falcons. I don't love it, but I think it's defensible, and it kind of is what it is. Like this could be the division that you go, one of these teams won 11 games and all the rest won 7 or less, and it was a huge difference in the standings. And I kind of just hoping that everything stays relatively about the same in that 8-9 win mark, kind of like it was last year. If that ends up being the case, then I'm fine here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Arthur Smith has a good case of being the best head coach in the division, too. Like he did pretty damn well with his offense last year with Marcus Mariota. I'm super worried about Desmond Ritter, though. I have not watched Cincinnati. I never watched him and felt like he was a future NFL starting quarterback, but here we are. So
Right.
we will see.
I don't know that I believe in it either. I don't believe in it, but it kind of is what it is. I am struggling with
Interested to see where you go here. Yeah, NFC North is tough.
The NFC North last year was really like the deciding thing because giving me the Vikings and you taking Green Bay and it being playing out the way that it did was critical. Oh, what do I want to do here? Okay. I'm going to make a bit of a surprise selection. I really like the Lions. I really do. Okay. But I'm not going to pick them.
I know what you're doing.
And I really, really love Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. I really do.
You're stealing my thunder, John.
But I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers.
Wow.
I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers. This is a upside pick. This is a what the hell are you doing, John? Pick. This is a pick about culture. It's about believing in Jordan Love. It's about saying the Packers, Aaron Rodgers was part of the problem last year. And I just spoke glowingly about the bounce back year he's going to have with the Jets. But I think the Packers can have a bounce back year with Jordan Love. I took a team with a 7.5 win over under. There's teams in the division with 9.5 win over unders. But you know what? Screw it. I've made my bet. I'm going to lay in it. I'm banking on the Jordan Love experiment. I still think they have talent at running back. I still think they have dudes on defense. I think they have a good offensive line, good enough to win games, offensive line. I think that Christian Watson is a high upside skill player at wide receiver, entering his second year, more comfortable. He had explosive games last season. I like Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. Romeo Dobbs, I think he can be solid. I like the tight end Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. I think that their skill players are significantly better than they were last year in a post Devontae Adams world. They've stepped up those rooms. I think that they've done a lot of exciting things. And if Jordan Love, who looked good in the preseason, can give them what they need to be successful, you know what? I'm talking myself into it. I'm going with the Packers.
That is it's bold. I was targeting them because I wasn't sure if you were going to take them. I think it's a good pick. It's risky. You've had to be kind of on your back foot in this draft. That's what happens when you take the number one selection. So I think it's a good time to take a risk. You know what I feel right now? I don't actually feel disappointment that you took the Packers. I actually feel a little bit of relief that I don't have to bet on it because for all the reasons you just explained, I could see it working out where they win the division and we're like, this is the team in the NFC North. Nothing's ever going to change. But there's a serious downside. It's a total unknown what we're going to get out of Jordan Love. Total unknown. Like not even like a Kenny Pickett level unknown. It's like he could be terrible and it wouldn't be shocking.
Very possibly.
So I know the Lions are projected to win the division this year. I think given that you took a risk with the Packers, I'm going to play it safe instead because it's the Lions, kind of like my rationale with the Jets. Like, what if they just went 5-12? That's kind of what they do when they have expectations. I'm going to lock in the Vikings. I don't love it. This was they had the most ridiculous season of all time last year. There's no way they should have won 13 games. They had like a 33-point comeback. They had that crazy Bills game where Josh Allen fumbled in the end zone trying to sneak it out and win the game. They got exposed in the playoffs. I don't feel great about it, but when you think about this division and what the Vikings offer, they do offer kind of like the Saints, at least a baseline level of competence with Kirk Cousins. Like I don't feel like a Kirk Cousins team could ever go 5-12 or 6-11. I feel like a Kirk Cousins team could go 8-9, sure, but 8-9 should be enough to keep me, within arm's reach in this division if Green Bay ends up reaching their upside rather than their downside. I also get the best player in the division in Justin Jefferson. I'm just looking forward to being able to root for that instead of against that this year. They're bringing in Brian Flores. I thought that was low-key one of the best signings of the offseason as their defensive coordinator. So they're going to play aggressive. They're going to get the most out of their personnel. It was not a very good defense last year in a lot of ways. There's a lot of reinforcements coming in. It kind of is starting to look like they're they're starting to kind of go and move into that rebuilding, like the Kirk era is over phase. I think this is Kirk's last year of his contract, but I do think there is a certain level. It's the safe pick at the end of the day. Do I really think the Lions are going to live up to expectations? It's not like I'm locking in an Aaron Rodgers too. I'm locking in Jared Goff. So set it and forget it. Even if they regress from last year, they would have to regress by more than 5 games to win less than 8. So I think they will regress. I think they'll pull back to like 8 or 9 wins, and I'm okay with that.
All right. There you have it. So I just, while you were doing that, was calculating on Warren Sharp. Like, look, I'm not gonna make a judgment between the Vikings and the Lions. I think that it's a very defensible pick. I think I would have chosen. I think that I had the Lions third. Is really what I mean. As sexy and fun as they are to think about, like I would have taken the Vikings in the same position. I think we would have had similar setup here.
I think where we differed was I would have taken the Ravens instead of the Steelers. Otherwise, I think we were pretty well. You would have taken
the Jets instead of the Dolphins.
Yeah.
But I think that it's pretty standard how it ended up shaking out. I just went and calculated it out. You're projected based on Warren Sharp's preseason projections. You're projected for 78 regular season wins. I'm projected for 74 regular season wins. I think that when, maybe I made the wrong choice in going first in this draft with there being 5 teams that really stand out above the rest. But I think that the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl this year, which is why I took them first. I think that the Bills, I think that all of our picks were defensible. I just think it's fun the way that it shook out, the way that it did. It's going to be fun to follow, just like it is every year, every single time that we do this. First game's on Thursday night, and now I'm going to be rooting for the Lions like hell.
Do we have any head-to-head matchups in week 1? I think the Niners and the Steelers, I think.
The Niners and the Steelers play, and the Niners are going to be without Bosa and Kittle for that game. Yeah. So that game's in Pittsburgh. That's going to be a huge game right off the bat. 1, because I want the Steelers to win. 2, because it helps with the competition.
The Titans and Saints play, so I'm locked into a loss.
It's going to be a toss-up. This competition is going to be a toss-up, just like all of our other ones are. Looking at it right off the jump, like I feel good about my team, and you should feel good about yours. And injuries and upsets and missed field goals and fumbles and the draw in the playoffs, all that stuff's going to matter, and that's why we do this, because it is so damn fun. That is why we do this. Ultimately, it is so damn fun to have all of these teams now that I'm going to be tracking. If there's a Seahawks and a Texans game, it matters for me to root for the Seahawks to win. Just like if there's a Titans and Patriots game, it matters for you to be rooting for the Titans to win now. And that makes it so fun.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. When I was thinking about this draft, I think the NFL wins pool in particular is especially chaotic. Like not March Madness level, but I think more chaotic than college football, where you can predict which teams based on the recruiting levels are going to be really good. I think personally, and you'll probably disagree because I think you have the Eagles locked into the NFCs. To me, other than the Chiefs being, I think, a lock to win the AFC West, I think every other division is up for grabs this year. And that just kind of, there's so much parity. So a competition like this, it's like, who knows, man? And that's kind of the thrill of it, right?
There's a lot of teams that were not drafted that have a chance to be really, really good. Yeah. Baltimore and Cleveland both. If they win the division, that wouldn't be surprising. The Jets, we already talked about them. Who knows? Maybe Denver with Sean Payton has a bounce back, or maybe the Raiders with Jacobs and Devontae Adams, 2 of the best players in the NFL at their positions. Maybe they end up being really good.
You might be reaching with the Raiders.
Maybe. I'm just, Detroit and potentially the Commanders. Who knows if Sam Howell's really good, or the Giants, like
Bill Belichick.
There's a lot of teams that could pop up and that we didn't draft that are going to have an impact on how this thing goes. But anyways, Dave, we wanted to keep it under an hour. We're almost exactly at an hour.
We did.
We're going to be tracking this every single week. CLIC.substack.com. We're going to be tracking college. We're going to be tracking the NFL. Is Dave going to owe me a G? Am I going to owe him a G? Or are we going to wash this out? Who knows? Remains to be seen. Either way, it's going to be fun to track the competition all year long. I'm fired up that I get to root for the Steelers this year. Any last thoughts, Dave, before we wrap this thing up and we start watching football soon enough here on Thursday night?
No, man.
Just
seconding what you're saying, I'm super pumped. So thanks as always for doing this. Thanks for the 5 people listening.
Maybe we'll be back at some point soon enough here, just giving random thoughts on how things are going. This is fun. I always love getting to chat for an hour or so with you. And look, we don't do this for viewers. We do this for ourselves, and so we can hold each other accountable, and we send it to our friends, and that's that. But it's fun, and we have a great time doing it. So thank you for anybody that did listen to this point in time. It's some years down the road when Dave and I are both mega famous and super successful, and you come back and go, wow, those 2 guys, damn, they had a show together. That's incredible.
People are going to be like, David picked the Colts with his 3rd divisional pick back in 2022.
No wonder he's broke.
We're going to be getting canceled for flashing these spreadsheets up with the terrible picks that we've made. This guy calls himself an expert. What's going on?
Hey, we hold each other accountable. That's what we do here. All right. Anyways, signing off. I'm John. That's David. That was a lot of fun, man. We will talk to each other soon.
See you, brother.